Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Wednesday, the 18th of June, 2025. You're watching Morning Brew on Politics Social. I am Graham Hughes. You are awesome. We've got Elle in the chat. We've got Joanna. We've got Martin. We've got Blah Blah. We've got Veg Pie and Diz. Lemon Twist is in there as well. We've got Sarah Davis. We've also got Andrew Dixon down there as well. Hi, Andrew. We've got Daylight Dave. We've got Leap Shin. We've got Joanna. I think mentioned Joanna, but if I hadn't, hi Joanna. We've got Liam in there and Saz, SG, Trip, Alice Sturm, and others. If you'd like to join these wonderful people in our chat here, all you need to do is hit the subscribe button, wait for 1 minute, and you will be afforded the opportunity to speak your brains on this, the Politics Social channel. But don't be a troll. Okay, so we've got a few stories to go through this morning because I don't want to concentrate too much on what's happening in the Middle East because obviously that's dominated the discourse over the last few days. But suffice to say, things aren't looking great, especially for the good people of Iran right now. Trump has all but sanctified Netanyahu's Operation Rising Lion. Is that really what it's called? Operation Rising. That seems like a really silly name. Yeah, he's essentially said this is okay. What Netanyahu's doing is fine. He hasn't admonished him. He hasn't told him not to do it. He hasn't told him to pack it in. He's basically not just gone along with it, but said, do you know what would be really good is if we could just like kill the leader of Iran, and I know where he lives, so it should be. I mean, I can't believe I'm living in this particular time frame. Something else that I didn't actually know until yesterday, and after I did the show actually with Ollie, I was reading up about it. Netanyahu was actually facing a no confidence vote. Did you know about this? He was facing a no confidence vote last week, just before he decided to go and invade, stop throwing rockets at Iran. Funny that. But Trump has said that the America has complete and total control over the skies of Iran, which isn't completely true because Iran is still firing rockets into Israel, so you can see with our own eyes that they don't actually dominate all of everything that's flying around from Iran. But it does signal that US military involvement might be imminent, which is a big problem for Trump because his MAGA lunatics are all isolationists. They well, not all of them, most of them are isolationists. They're America first, F everyone else. And so this could really split his base. It's the fact that everything's now in tatters. Iran was about to allow IAEA inspectors back in to their facilities on a deal that was supposed to be signed on Sunday. Now that's getting signed. Israel, the irony here is it has a secret nuclear arsenal. It is not a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and the reason why Netanyahu needs Trump right now is there is a facility that's kind of like under a mountain. It's hundreds of meters under the surface of this mountain, and all the artillery, rockets, bombs, shit that BB has got probably won't make much of a dent in this mountain. What they need is these. It's not a Moab, is it? Because that's the mother of all bombs. This is. It's a massive ordnance penetrator, a MOP. They love their acronyms in America, don't they? They want to use these 30,000 pound GBU 57 bunker busting bombs that have been developed to destroy facilities that are deep underground, and America has them, Israel doesn't, and they're targeting this Fordow fuel enrichment plant, which is buried deep underground in the mountains there in Iran. They know where it is. They can see the entrance and the exit and the bloody heat vents and the all that kind of stuff. But they can't actually take it out. The Israelis can't take it out, but the Americans can. And reports are saying that Trump was briefed about the feasibility of this week. By the way, talking about Trump and his phone calls, there were some people who apparently, and this isn't verified because nothing is at the Trump White House, but overheard the discussion between Trump and his head of the military, Pete Hegseth, Kegsbreath, the other day after the disaster that was the military parade. And Trump was going, I think he was going about the tone. The tone was all wrong and just absolutely freaking out Hegseth for ruining his birthday party, which just makes me so inordinately happy that Trump had a miserable time at his fucking birthday party. I really hope that he doesn't have many more of them. You can remove the M from that, many, if you like. But I never said that. You may well think it, but I couldn't possibly say it. Anyway, that'd be great if that was his last one. And it was so miserable. Paula Thomas, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Read Netanyahu confidence vote, oldest trick in the book. That's why Argentina invaded the Falklands and why Margaret Thatcher sent the task force. Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, Argentina invading the Falklands, that was a military junta that had sort of taken over, had totally taken over Argentina. And yeah, invading the Alas Malvinas was the last roll of the dice to try and keep them in power. Unfortunately for them, it didn't work and ended up with that junta being yeeted into the deep blue sea. So yes, Trump the interventionist. I mean, Trump based his base on opposing the Bush-era wars, opposing intervention in Afghanistan and in Iraq. He's famously had a meeting with the Taliban. He invited them over to meet him, and he had a meeting with these terrorists, because we called them terrorists for a very long time, and he did a deal, and he said, we'll pull out all American troops from Afghanistan, and you can do what the hell you like. We don't care. He called Iraq, the Iraq invasion, a big fat mistake in the 2016 debates. And now he's considering the exact kind of war that he campaigned against, a war where you send in all the troops to enact regime change. So MAGA isolationists are already grumbling, and they're not keen on another Bush war with a red hat on. And the thing is with this, like with Iraq, like with Afghanistan, there's no exit strategy. There is no end game to this. There's no talk in the White House about what happens, what comes after the bombing. Anyone cheerleading this, said Senator Chris Murphy, a Democrat from Connecticut. He said, anyone cheerleading this war has forgotten the disasters of Iraq and Afghanistan. Funnily enough, Iraq and Afghanistan are on either side of Iran. Iran's in the middle of those two countries. And the likely Iranian retaliation will be strikes on US bases, closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which I've spoken about yesterday, about how catastrophic that's going to be for our fuel supplies, and cyber attacks on US infrastructure. And if there was ever a time when states that don't really like America very much could go after America in a cyber attack, a massive cyber attack that knocks out huge critical infrastructure in America, now's the time to do it, my friends, my enemies, my compadres, my nemesises, my nemesi. Seriously though, Trump's administration have stripped out so much of the protection, the firewalls against foreign interference in their logistical computer network. They're up shit creek, mate. They're in a real lot of trouble right now, because they were they sent in Musk, who was working for Putin, and obviously Trump's working for Putin as well, to be honest with you. But they sent them in. And said, go, have fun. And they cracked into sensitive government databases and started plugging pen drives in all over the shop and introducing viruses and backdoors and ways of malware, ways of hacking the system from outside that needed someone to invite them in. You needed to invite the vampires in, and very much so, the Trump administration has invited the vampires in, thinking it would only be the friendly vampires from Russia, their friends from Russia. But the Iranians could take advantage of that. So could the North Koreans. So could the Chinese. No, I didn't mean the Chinese vampires. Like, you've invited the vampires into your house. I'm afraid all of them get to come in now, you idiots. But also there's this potential for a regional wildfire. Like, the Middle East still isn't, in any shape of stability. At the moment, you've got Afghanistan being ruled by the Taliban. You've got shit going down in Pakistan, especially over Kashmir with India, but also you've got separatist movements in the west of Pakistan. You've also got Syria, which has just got a new government, which is sort of finding its feet at the moment and banning hijabs, forcing hijabs at the beach and shit. You've got Iraq, which is still not back up to where it used to be. You've got Lebanon, which is still reeling from more recently the Israeli attacks that culminated in the pager attack that took out hundreds of Hezbollah operatives. So you got that entire region is not the most stable at the moment. Even going north, Azerbaijan and Armenia have been having tussles over the last few years. Armenia famously losing its exclave of Nagorno-Karabakh in Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan now wanting access to its part of Azerbaijan that's on the west side of Armenia, sandwiched between Armenia and Turkey. So you got instability there as well. I mean, the whole region, that particular part of the Middle East and Central Asia, it can be seen as a powder keg, and this could be what lights the blue touch paper. This is proceeding in a very, very dangerous way. And just like with Iraq, they wanted regime change, so they wanted to take out one squishy little human, so they decided to bomb the shit out of the entire country and kill hundreds of thousands of people. And did it work? No, we got ISIS. We got something fucking worse. We got something worse than Saddam Hussein. I met Iraqis when I was in. So just to be clear, I went to Iraq. I was there for a few days. I stayed up in Suleimania, which is up in the Kurdish region in the north of the country, and I traveled through Erbil, the sort of capital of Kurdistan, and so I got to meet I got to meet lots of Kurds, right? I met some actual Baghdadis when I was in Kuwait, because there were quite a few people who had come from Baghdad who had worked for Saddam Hussein's regime as civil servants, as just school teachers, architects, that kind of thing, just like a normal job, but they worked for the Ba'athist regime. Here's the thing, they were Christians. And under Saddam Hussein's watch, he was much more of a secular leader, unlike leader Khomeini in Iran. He was a more secular leader, and he didn't care which well, he obviously didn't like the Kurds, but he preferred to have people who were Christian around him, because he felt like in the whole fight between Shia and Sunni, they had no skin in that particular game. And yeah, once he was deposed, they had to leave. They were like, well, we're not safe here anymore, because there were militia groups going after people of different religions. Or, even different flavors of Islam. I mean, we hardly ever talk about Sufi Islam. Sufi's the mystical sort of sect of Islam, which is where you get the whirling dervishes. If you ever watch the movie The Jewel of the Nile, remember that? The Muslims in that, and the Jewel, the magic man who makes, his turns out to be a jewel. Sorry, spoilers. Is a Sufi. and they are discriminated against, and they are oppressed in many of these places around the Middle East as well. I mean, the whole thing is a bit of a clusterfuck, to be honest with you, but there are steps that could be being taken to make it a better place for everyone who lives there. But the West just, it goes from these periods of ignoring what's happening in the Middle East, not wanting to get involved, to just absolutely getting involved and bombing the shit out of stuff. And there's just like nothing in between. And I'm very much for diplomacy. I'm more for Georgia than war. Not for Jar Jar, though. He was very irritating. But the way that the Israeli administration has gone about this, and then backed by the US administration, who should be reining them in, should absolutely be reining them in. So, okay, you've disrupted shit. But no, what should Trump do? He says, you should evacuate Tehran, the capital. Over 10 million people, as we discussed yesterday. Over 10 million people live in Tehran. That's more than the population of Israel. The entire population of Israel. Imagine if Iran had said to the entire population of Israel, you need to evacuate your entire country. Like, what? Alistair, thank you very much for the £5 super chat, my friend. To be honest, Graham, the Chinese have already got into infrastructure, power, water, phone system, etc. 2 years ago. In the US or in the UK, Alistair, thank you for the super chat. Because I know that they were, we were told, the UK was told to stop Huawei from being involved in our 5G rollout because they were worried about espionage, and they were warned about that by the US, who are very strong on that. I don't think the US will be as strong on stuff like that at the moment. Do you remember when Iran was a democracy? I wonder who buggered that up. Oh yeah, it was us and the US to ensure we could nick their oil. We are to blame for this, as usual, says Captain Coconut. And Captain Coconut is not wrong. We are absolutely to blame for this. They had a fledgling democracy, and we got rid of it and said they had to have a king, a Shah, who didn't rule particularly well. I mean, he wasn't like as awful as some other rulers, but I mean, that's not saying much in the 20th century. And he ended up getting deposed. And what did they get instead? They got a theocracy. Well done, everyone. USA, they got into things, Graham. Yes, they did. And the shadow of water is light through a ripple on the surface of the stream. Light shadows, says Trip Trip. Well, that's quite poetic this morning. So talking about Russia, I was going to mention, like, this is a bit like Russia backing up Iran to the hilt and threatening Israel, and Putin making all these pronouncements about how everyone should evacuate Tel Aviv, which hasn't happened. And this is the second thing I want to talk about this morning is Russia's strategic nightmare. Okay, so it goes like this. In one way, this could be quite a good thing in the short term for Russia. Why? Because it pushes up commodity prices. It pushes up the prices of oil and gas. And obviously, when those prices go up, Russia gets more money to spend on its unpopular and unwinnable war in Ukraine. However, Russia is now watching its main strategic partner in the Middle East getting obliterated. Its defense is getting obliterated. Russia can't or won't intervene militarily, and it relies on drones. It relies on Iran for its drones that it keeps firing into or flying, I guess, into Ukraine. Now, obviously, with a drone that's being flown remotely by remote control, that can be hacked. Those signals can be jammed. So what's happening now with a lot of drones that the Russians are flying over from the part of Ukraine that they're occupying into Ukrainian territory, they're fly by wire. Like, they have a little bit of optic fiber, which is glass, and there are thousands of these little trails of optic fibers all over these fields now in Ukraine. Now, the thing is that Russia can make its own drones now. It's got its factories online. it's slightly less reliant on Iran for its drone capability. However, as Ukraine has shown, it's quite adept at shooting down, putting the kibosh on some of the things that Russia wants to do. And its audacious drone attack a few weeks ago, when it took out half of Russia's bombing capability, especially when it came to their nuclear defense or nuclear assault, I guess. There wouldn't be a defense with it from a bomb. Their ability to bomb stuff with nuclear bombs was hugely diminished by this Ukrainian attack. Now, what happens if that happened? If the Ukrainians go after these facilities that are making the drones? If that had happened a few weeks ago, the Russians could have turned to Iran and said, "Oh, can we have some more drones, please? We need hundreds, thousands more drones." But that's not going to happen now, by the looks of things, because Iran has its own shit to deal with, and the benefits of what's happening in Iran are evaporating very fast. I mean, I mentioned the benefit of the fact that oil and gas will go up in price, which they have done massively. But the Russian media actually celebrated when this first happened, which was a bit odd. But they were celebrating about the global focus shifting from Ukraine to the Middle East. And it also gave Russia the potential to play peacemaker. Yeah. The country that is at war, that has invaded its neighbor, is going to be the peacemaker in the Middle East. All right, mate. But if Iran loses its leader, if Khomeini is taken out, or if he's deposed, or whatever, if the regime collapses in Iran, it's another lost ally after losing Syria, because al-Assad of Syria was a huge. He was propped up by Russia. The only reason why Assad wasn't toppled in 2011 was because Russia came in on his side and provided him with the money and the logistics and the weaponry that he needed to fight off an insurgency on two, or maybe arguably three different fronts. You had ISIS, you had the Kurds, and you also had Sunni separatists or people who wanted to get rid of this particular leader. And Russia has no treaty with Iran. It's not actually obliged to defend Iran. And Russia, according to a Russian analyst called Andrei Kortunov, he said Russia was unable to prevent a mass strike on a strategic partner that has consequences. So, we all like to think of Putin as this amazing geopolitical chess master, but when his pieces start fucking exploding, it doesn't leave much, does it, for him to play with? And, there's some domestic fallout for this as well. Russia's St. Peter's Economic Forum, which this week was meant to be, it's in St. Petersburg, and it was meant to be like the Davos, the leader of the Daleks, Davos in Russia, and now it's looking like the wheels are coming off that. And 140 countries were expected to attend this economic summit, but key Western firms are continuing to boycott. And we haven't really heard much from Putin about this, about what's happening in the Middle East. I don't know if he's made a statement yet. I haven't seen it. If he had, I was looking this morning. If you've seen a statement, let me know in the chat. But this is where we're heading towards. Thank you very much to Alistair. Thank you so much. Alistair is so generous and really gives a lot to this channel, and he's just forked out for 5 Politics Social gift memberships. So thank you so much, Alistair. You are awesome. In fact, I'll just make a little thing to say you're welcome. You are awesome. And Alice, I'm saying welcome to Isabella and Winston and Dragons Marine and Doc Davis and anybody else? Lee Corn as well. Lee Corn, well done. You're now a member, Lee. You're also a mod, but you're also a member. So thank you very much. And just want to say a big welcome to all our new members on the channel. That's kind of cool. You now get a little rose after your name and you should get access to the Discord server, the Politics Social Discord server. Ivan, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. Very briefly, these things are harmful to my fragile brain, but I need to say this. News on the TV is getting better with issuing trigger warnings on these things, but news websites stroke apps do nothing. Yeah, I get Ivan, thank you very much for the super chat, and I get what you're saying there. It's one of the reasons why I don't have footage on this. It'll just be me talking about stuff, and I'll try and make it clear in the title and the description of the video what the topic's going to be today. So it does seem like a bit of a tough thing to talk about, or something that you feel might be triggering for you. Then please, you're under no obligation to watch these streams clearly. But yeah, I put on the description of all of these videos. I know it's a lot, and I give the number for the Samaritans if that's required. But I try my best to keep people informed without going down the route of showing graphic images or discussing stuff in too much detail. And if I do start talking about stuff like sexual assault, stuff like rape as a weapon of war and things like that in any kind of detail, I will always try and preface that with a trigger warning. But please look, if I forget, please keep everyone in the chat, keep me straight, make sure that I don't go off on one about something that you find particularly uncomfortable without letting you know first. But thanks very much for the super chat there, Ivan. And I know it's a lot. So what we're going to talk about now is just the question of what happens if Iran collapses. What happens if the Iranian regime that's been in place since 1979, 46 years, what if it now collapses? Now, this is a huge population. It's 90 million people live in Iran. Now, we often think of like Persia, because I would say like Persia, Persian rugs, Prince of Persia, Persian cat. I love the word Persia. I think it's a beautiful word. And I never really understood before I went there why they changed the name. Why are you Iran? Why aren't you Persia anymore? Well, the reason for that is Iran is the name of the country. Persians are an ethnic group, the largest ethnic group, but they are an ethnic group inside of Iran. So it's not just the Persians. There are Azeris, there are Kurds, there are Baloch, there are Turkmen, and there are Arabs who all live in Iran. And as I've learned from personal experience of going there, if you call someone who's not an Arab, who lives in Iran, an Arab, I didn't do this, but I was told basically don't do this, they get very upset because that's not their ethnic identity. And so a sudden collapse in the overriding glue that keeps the country together, despite the differences between these ethnic groups, well, we could first of all see a refugee crisis on a scale we haven't seen since Syria, which would cheer the hell up. It would cheer up the populace, the people who are working for the Russians over here in Europe, because they love nothing more than the creation of refugees. Don't forget the whole of Wagner in Russia, around, they were fighting, causing trouble, causing uncertainty, unbalancing regimes, causing disruption all across the Middle East and all across Africa, North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. They love their refugees. They love having refugees because refugees means that populist leaders like Nigel Farage and Maloney and Orban and Le Pen and all those motherfuckers do really, really well. Because they go, look, these people coming from other countries, the bastards. Refugees have always been an easy target. Going back a long, long time. For people to say, why are we letting these foreigners come here? Why are we doing this? Why are we giving safe haven to these people? We shouldn't. Should be someone else's problem. Should be all covered in an SCP field or someone else's problem field. And if the regime does fall, there will be an inevitable power vacuum. So you've got refugees, you've got these different ethnic groups, you've got the idea of also terrorists love a power vacuum. It gives them a chance to get a leg up. And it could lead to civil war in Iran, because Iran is not a homogeneous nation by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not. Don't forget, if you're let's say you live in northern Iran and you're Kurdish, Farsi, which is the Persian language, that might be your second language. And the thing is, it's not like these religious groups all live in one particular area. It would be like trying to unpick the United Kingdom. Yes, most Scottish people live in Scotland. Most Welsh people live in Wales. But a fuckload of people from Wales and Scotland live in England. And a lot of English people live in Scotland. A lot of English people live in Wales. And so if you tried to separate everyone out again, it just take that from their homes. If there was suddenly this power vacuum that led people to go, I don't like the Scottish people anymore. So anyone with a Scottish twang in their voice was thrown out of the town, thrown out of the city. You got to understand the scale of this. This is a really big country. 90 million people. It is bigger than the UK. Think about how big the UK is. Add another 20 million people. That's how big Iran is. And, it could end in civil war. It could end in a military dictatorship. It could lead to a surge in regional extremism flowing over the borders. This often happens. It's very unusual for a country to collapse into civil war and it not to affect the countries around it. I'll give you some examples. Sierra Leone. Do you remember Diamonds from Sierra Leone? The movie Blood Diamond, right? Sierra Leone, right? That conflict didn't start in Sierra Leone. That conflict started next door in Liberia and fled. It moved across the border. The arms, the mentality, the groups training children to fight, it came across the border. What happened in Zaire, which then became the Democratic Republic of Congo in the 1990s, happened as a direct result of the massacre that happened in Rwanda, neighboring little tiny Rwanda, in 1994. The instability created by that and the fact that the Tutsi militias got the hell out of They got out of Rwanda because they were being massacred by the Houthis. And what happened was they went into Congo and started taking over. They started taking over the mining operations and other logistical operations in eastern DRC, or Zaire as it was then. And they kept, all they needed was an AK-47 and a satellite phone. And they continued all the way, they pushed all the way into Kinshasa, which led to the regime change. But that didn't originate in the DRC. It originated in Rwanda. It's very unusual for an instability in one country to only affect that one country. Not least because you tend to get lots of refugees leaving that country to the neighbouring countries and therefore destabilising the politics in those countries, because the right-wing populists jump on board and say, hey, why are we allowing these people from Zimbabwe to come here? They should be in Zimbabwe, send them back. And then we look at Somalia, which I've mentioned a few times on this show, on this stream, on this channel. Somalia fell apart in 1991, fell into anarchy. And as a result of that, the price of shipping went up for everyone eventually because of the Somali piracy situation. Why did the Somali pirates come along? Well, because these were fishermen who had no money, because there were no fish, because there was no navy, there was no coast guard, because of the instability, the country had fallen into anarchy. And so Chinese trawlers and other countries' trawlers turned up, took all of the fish from the shallows, dredged the seafloor all along the coast of Somalia, which has a massive long coast, and fucked off with all the fish. There's not many fish in the deep sea. Okay, in the deep blue sea, when you think about it, when you think about like you're 4 kilometers from the seabed, you're floating in a little cork on the top of it. There's not many fish around there. There's not many nutrients for the fish to feed on. You'll get some long swimmers, like you'll get like your whales, your dolphins, your turtles, maybe some sharks, but you're not going to get the kind of amount of life that you get in the shallows, the coastlines of countries. This is why countries get so protective over their fishing rights in their territories. And as a result of the instability in Somalia, that led to an increase in the amount of the cost of not just getting commodities around the world, but also the cost of getting aid to other African countries. Because there were ships with aid on board that were trying to get to, East Africa. And they couldn't get to Mombasa because it meant running the gauntlet past a bunch of Somali pirates that were going to, hijack your ship and kidnap everyone on board and hold them to ransom. While any produce on board the ship would eventually rot. You can only keep things refrigerated for so long. So, this is really, really bad. This is a really bad situation. I disagree fundamentally with trying to foment regime change from outside any given country. Regime change needs to be populist within the country, and it needs to be a process. We had a regime change in South Africa, and it was wildly successful. I know not everything in South Africa is perfect, but it's a beautiful country, and the younger generation coming up don't have the same idiotic mentality as their forebears. The people who were there in the 1980s telling people who were black that they couldn't use the same drinking fountain as them, or they weren't actually South African. If you think about it, you need a special pass to come from the townships into the cities to work. You need a passport to go into South Africa. It was a crazy, insane, bigoted, horrific time. But when I think about sort of these regime changes that have actually worked, sometimes it does, but often, if the force for change comes from outside, it usually, 9 times out of 10, goes the wrong way. Doesn't go the way you think it's going to go. And another example of this, let's go back to Gaza. Gaza was given elections in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, and everyone thought, oh well, they'll vote for Fatah and they will continue the peace process. No, they voted for Hamas. They voted for Hamas because Hamas were the people saying, no, we're going to look after you. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Whereas Fatah was seen as traitors because they had negotiations with the Israelis. But then that was it. Once they'd had that one election, Hamas were like, right, we're in charge now. And here we are 20 years later. Hamas is still in charge. There's not much left for them to be in charge of, thanks to the Israelis. But, Iraq, 2003, power vacuum, insurgency, ISIS. Libya, 2011, regime change, civil war, terror groups coming from Libya. Libya is in a state of Cold War at the moment between the forces from Tripoli and the forces from Benghazi. The country's effectively been split in two. Afghanistan, regime change put in by the British and the Americans and the coalition of the willing. NATO went in and said, okay, America's been attacked. We're going to activate Article 50 or Article 50. That was the EU, wasn't it? Article 5. We're going to activate Article 5 and we're going to come in on the side of America and say they've been attacked by the Saudis, but we'll invade Afghanistan because that kind of makes sense. They got rid of the Taliban for 20 years. No, they didn't. They didn't get rid of them. They just suppressed them for 20 years. The Taliban didn't go anywhere. Just retreated into the hills. And then as soon as America was not interested in maintaining a peacekeeping force in Afghanistan, because under Trump he didn't give a shit about anyone else but himself. He doesn't even give a shit about America. He decides there and then that he's gonna withdraw the troops. It was obviously Biden who was the president when that actually happened, but it would have been a shitfest no matter which president was in charge at that time, because Trump had secret meetings with the Taliban and said, "Yep, you can take back over." So we effected regime change for 20 years And then the Taliban just got back in. What was the fucking point of that? What was the point of the bloodshed, the terror, the horror, the misery? Every regime that America has toppled in the last 25 years has become a breeding ground for chaos. But, let's roll the dice again. Maybe it'll work this time. My God. Plum Duff, I love hummus. I nearly read that as I love humans. I love humans as well. Not the nasty ones, not the bigoted ones, not the Martina Navratilova ones. Jesus Christ. Philip says, just think of all the places politics social seen with his own eyes and walked on the ground. Well, yeah, I mean, thanks for that. I think meeting the people from these places and talking to them, one of the most, I've told you about my sort of experiences in Iran before, but my experiences traveling with Syrian refugees, this happened twice on my journey. One was on a ferry going from Wadi Halfa in Sudan to Aswan in Egypt over Lake Nasser. And literally, over 50% of the people on the ship that I was on were Syrian refugees. Now, with their Syrian visas, Syrian passports, they could live in other country in the Middle East for like up to 6 months, right? So it's essentially sort of the same as if we had to just spend ages traveling around the EU. We couldn't even do this anymore because the EU, the Schengen area, you're in, and then the clock starts ticking. You can't just go, right, I've spent 3 months in France, I'm going to spend 3 months in Germany now. But the refugees from Syria could spend a few months in Sudan, then they could spend a few months in Egypt, then they could spend a few months in Turkey. They could travel around with their families, with everything they could carry, not everything they owned because they had to leave a lot of stuff, and just sitting down and chatting with these amazing, wonderful, talkative, erudite people who we have this impression, put forward by the bigots and the xenophobes and the racists and the Islamophobes, that all these refugees coming over from North Africa, from the Middle East, they're all goat herders. They're no use to anyone. No, these people were professionals. I met accountants and teachers. I met an architect. These people had professional jobs. They worked in offices. They drove a car from their house on their driveway to an office. They parked the car in a carport, and then they went in and they sat down in front of a computer and did work. They designed stuff. They made things happen in Syria. They have cities. They have high rises. They have apartments. They have flats. They have suburbs. They have gardens. Like, this idea that these refugees are like, oh, they're all in rags and they're all like, they come with a goat. It's like, it's so infuriating. But I know that so many people have that impression when it's not the case at all. The second time was a few weeks, about a week later, I was traveling from north of Egypt, a place called Port Said, and I was traveling over to Iskenderun in Turkey, right? So if you look at a map, you got Turkey. It looks like it's like a rectangle, isn't it? So this was sort of up in the southeast of the country. It's quite near the border with Syria, but at the time it all kicked off in Syria. I couldn't travel through Syria, and on this ship, overnight boat, ferry, there were more refugees, and they were doing the same thing. They were there with their families. They had the kids running around, and they were staying with members of, family or members of the community for which they were from in other countries. And all these refugees wanted was to go home. And I can't stress this enough. It's why refugees mostly just stay in the country next to them. I mean, there's a lot of internally displaced people in the world. But when it comes to people actually leaving their country and going somewhere else, you're looking at places like Papua New Guinea and Turkey have these huge numbers of refugees because people are just waiting for their country to become stable again, and then they want to go back home. That's the vast majority of refugees. If someone to stay, fine. Honestly, we can... It's not even a case of like we can afford it. We will benefit from people coming from other countries to our country all the time. We will benefit morally for doing the right thing, but also if you want to just be hard-nosed and cynical about it, we will benefit economically. Because you have people of working age, you've not had to pay for their upkeep for 21 years, you've not had to pay for their education, you've not had to pay for their vaccinations and their hospital appointments and their dentist appointments and their free prescriptions. You've not had to pay all of that out your tax. They turn up as fully formed human beings who are qualified to be a fucking doctor. And we're like, oh good, we need doctors. Come, help. Infuriating does not quite cover it. Oh, thank you very much. So what's not infuriating is Andrew Dixon. Andrew Dixon is absolutely awesome. Thank you, Andrew. You are the best. Andrew has just gifted 10 Politics Social memberships. So Thomas Connolly, Yorosh, Tom and Witchy Goth, and the 7 Sacraments of Health, Gabriel, and Chuck E. Cheese, and Draka, and Alive, and Lockyo77, and Richard Phillips. You are all now members of the channel. Oh, sorry, Richie Goff, you were already a member. Sorry. But all those gift memberships have been given now. So if you want to write something, you'll get a little rose after your name, which I think is quite cool. You are an absolute legend, Andrew, and welcome new members to the channel. Enjoy. I'll put your name at the end of the credits when I update that at some point this week. And you should get access to the Discord server. If you're now a member, what you want to do is go onto the messages, what they call posts for this channel, and there should be a post that is members only, and that gives you a hyperlink, as we used to call them back in the day, a URL link to the channel, to the Discord server for the Politics Social. So thank you very much, Andrew, for that. We will benefit, says Philip. Indeed, we will. So just to round up this part of the show, I mean, I find it like I'm devastated this is happening. I feel that it's not going to be great for the region. People talking about World War III and nuclear weapons and the end of the world, I would shy away from that idea. I could be wrong. Been wrong before. I'm sure I'll be wrong again. But I can't see it going down that route. Not least because I can't see Saudi Arabia coming in on the side of Iran. They've hated each other for centuries. I don't know. It doesn't seem very plausible to me that Israel or Iran would go down that route. If Israel does do the unthinkable and launches a nuclear weapon against Iran, then all bets are off. If Israel thinks it's a pariah now, Alistair. Alistair has just dropped another 5 Politics Social gift memberships, bestowed them on people. Thank you very much, Alistair. That is very, very kind of you. We've got Frog in a Well, we've got Martin, we've got Jim Jabber, Highly Addicted, and we've got Bhaskar Samani. So welcome new members, and thank you so much, Alistair. That is really, really kind of you, Alistair and Andrew here, bringing up the figures for our memberships. It's a membership for 1 month, and then after that, if you want to continue being a member, there are different levels. I mean, the cheapest one's like £2. Every little helps. So it's heartbreaking to see images of Iran from the 60s and 70s. Google it, before the mullahs took over. Looked like a typical European countries, women wearing bikinis on beaches, etc. Says Nick, honestly, once the mullahs are gone, if they ever get a democratic government in the next few years, if it happens, I think what Israel has done is set that progress back a long way. But the next day, you will see people on the beach in bikinis again. I guarantee it. The next day, it'll be like, oh wow, we're free again. Iran is still a very cosmopolitan place. I was fortunate enough to go. I was invited to a house party And the first thing, women turned up. The first thing they did when they got there was take their hijab off. And it's a dry country, but if you know where to get it, you can get alcohol. Um, it's all underground. It's all underground. It's not like well documented or known because we don't really have journalists embedded in in Iran at the moment. Like Western journalists are not allowed in. The BBC's not allowed in. Yeah, this doesn't really get reported on, but just between you and me, I think that Iran would very, very quickly become a place that you would want to go on holiday. I mean, it's beautiful. They have the skiing up in the mountains. They have beaches. Like I say, it's a huge country, and there's so much history there. I couldn't recommend going to Persepolis or Persepolis near Shiraz enough. It's the resting place of Xerxes and Darius, the leaders of the Persian armies, who were sort of vilified in the film like 300, where they're shown to be these weird androgynous people from the east who have come to fuck things over for the good people of Sparta. But it wasn't quite that straightforward. But it's still, it's got so much historical treasures that I'd love to spend more time there, because it always was the crossroads of civilization. I mean, it was the slap bang in the middle of the Silk Road. It depended on which Silk Road you took. You had to pass through Iran. You had to. It was the way you got through. And also, it's the birthplace of civilization. The oldest civilizations we know of that existed Iraq, Iran. That's where it all started, as far as we know. Saudi Arabia is keeping very quiet in all this. It has lots of business links with Israel, and Iran is their main rival in the region, so they've probably got the popcorn out. Well, yeah, I hope not. But yeah, I do find this whole thing absolutely heartbreaking. I think it will set back the nascent democratic movement in Iran. I think it's a foolish thing to do, and I think it's a disgusting thing to do, because it's clearly been done a few days before a agreement on nuclear inspection was about to be signed, and also it was the day after there was a call for a confidence motion in the embattled Prime Minister Netanyahu. And now Netanyahu's polls, which were in the fucking doldrums last week, have suddenly leapt up to new heights. Well, fancy that. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about this morning is the UK, the UK Parliament, the lower house, the House of Commons, voting last night to decriminalise abortion. So, this is a landmark moment. MPs voted to remove criminal penalties for women. I'm going to come back to this, who have abortions outside the legal current framework. The result was 379 for 137 against, with a free vote. It was initiated by the Labour backbencher Tonya Anatonazzi, or Nayatsi. And amendment was added. This amendment was added to the Crime and Policing Bill, and it means that women can no longer be prosecuted for self-managed abortions after the legal limit. They can't be done for buying put abortion bills on online. However, doctors can still face penalties. Third-party providers of abortion care can still be prosecuted. So what I want to bring up now is, this was, I think, Stella Creasy, who's a friend of this channel. I think she posted this yesterday. But I got this via Super Tansky. So if my computer would wake up, hello, wakey. So this is going to take up the full screen, because otherwise it'll look a bit crap. But let's blend in. So here we have the this is the NC1. This is the amendment that was voted for. This is the one brought in by Tonia Antonanazzi. I don't know how that's pronounced quite right, but so that's the NC1, which you see in the middle, and then the full decriminalisation amendment, which was NC20. This was Stella Creasy's one, which didn't get voted on. But if you look at the top here, I'm sorry I can't show you the pointer here, but criminal liability for women, that was removed by the bill that the amendment they put in yesterday, and that would have been removed under NC20, Stella Creasy's bill. But the criminal liability for professionals, doctors, and for third party, that remains. That was going to be removed under the full decriminalisation. The enforcement of abortion law under the 1967 Act, that would still fall under criminal law, or does still fall under criminal law under NC1, but it would only be regulatory under the full decriminalisation amendment that was being put forward by Stella Creasy. Medical oversight, which that's still intact now. You need 2 doctors, you need time limits on when you can have abortions, whereas the full decriminalisation was a regulatory arrangement with no criminal fallback. Like, women would not be put in jail, doctors wouldn't be put in jail, third-party providers wouldn't be put in jail. And one of the big ones was a human rights legal basis, which is absent from the NC1, which decriminalizes it for women, but not for everyone involved. Whereas that is explicitly embedded. It was explicitly embedded in Stella Creasy's amendment. So this is a win. Okay, let's be clear about this. This is a win for women's rights and women's bodily autonomy in this country. Many of us were shocked to discover that abortion is still illegal in this country. Not as shocked as women who had abortions after 20 weeks or had abortions on using pills they got off the internet and then found the full force of the law thrown against them. This happened during lockdown, where there was a woman who was already a mother of 2 or 3 who couldn't have another child because literally could not afford to have another child. Plus, we were in lockdown. We were in a state of panic because of this massive pandemic that was sweeping the world. And she ordered some abortion medication, some pills through the internet, off the internet, and she ended up getting criminally prosecuted because it's still against the law. So this is good. It's going to go through. This is part of the Criminal Justice Act, and hopefully the Crime and Policing Bill, which now is going to go to the House of Lords. The government's got a big stonking majority, so they're going to make sure that this goes through and gets royal assent. So it will happen, and it means that women can no longer be prosecuted for buying abortion pills online. Yay! However, it does mean that the people selling those abortion pills online can still be done. So, Carla Foster was the woman who was jailed for 28 months. This is a woman with young children who was jailed for 28 months in 2023. Bethany Cox was investigated for 3 years until the case was dropped. And Nicola Packer, she spent 4.5 years fighting charges before she was eventually acquitted. And Judge John Hardy, KC, in 2022 said it's a waste of court time and public interest. And this change in the law has been backed by the British Medical Association, the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, Women's Aid, the Fawcett Society, and the RCOG. President Professor Rane Thacker has called it a victory for women's essential reproductive rights. And, in a week of fucking war drums and existential dread, Parliament actually did something right. They did something decent, and frankly, we needed it. However, it doesn't go far enough. But this is a good step in the right direction. And I was talking to a friend of mine who used to be a parliamentarian about this yesterday, and he had brought in, or tried to bring in, using private members' bills, etc., and amendments, trying to bring in, laws to change the rules on organ donation, ending the royal succession being only for men, and ending the ban on royals marrying Catholics, bringing in a new rule about assisted dying. Now, they weren't successful at the time when they were first put in the 2000s. However, 3 out of those 4 have now become law. We now have we now opt out on our organ donation. So if you don't have a card explicitly saying that you don't want to give your organs, then they're taken from you. It's not up to your grieving family to make that horrible decision at a time when they can't quite believe that you're gone. Ending that the whole rule about royal succession couldn't fall to women. That was also something that changed afterwards, and then the ban on royals marrying Catholics, that was gotten rid of as well. So even though when these amendments, these bills, these changes, these ways of bringing in private members' bills, backbenchers, changing legislation in this way didn't work the first time, eventually it did work, and we are going to have some kind of movement on the laws for assisted dying in the next few years. I'm pretty sure of that. So we'll see. We will see. Good first step. Good first step. There's still some way to go, but at least now women aren't going to be put in jail for having an abortion in this country, which is something that just should be legal. Never mind decriminalized. It should just be legal. It's their bodies, and as long as it's done in a safe environment, because you're not going to stop women having abortions. All you're gonna do is make it so that those abortions aren't safe. We need a safe place where women can have that control, that men never even have to worry about. I worry about the number of men who old gruesome men who want control over women's bodies. That freaks me the fuck out. I think it's disgusting. I don't think it's up to men. It should be up to women what they do with their own bodies. One Angry Pagan says, still too many social conservatives, Graham. We need more progressives like Stella Creasy, Angela Rayner, and Clive Lewis. But we'll get them. People go into politics. People will see what they want to change. They see, and then they go into politics, and they go some way of becoming the change. Talking to Stella and talking to other MPs who, it's interesting because we get the impression that MPs just can't do anything. They're all beholden to the party whip. They can't get any of the stuff that they want to get through Parliament, but they can. If you've got a pet project that you want to get through Parliament, there are ways and arcane mechanisms for getting that to a vote and getting people to talk about it. And one of the ways that we can do something as a gang, as a posse, is by putting in petitions into the government for things like joining a customs union with the EU, right? So for something like that, if we got 100,000 signatures, they have to debate it in Parliament. It might only be debated in a chamber. It might, in one of the outer chambers. It might not be actually in the House of Commons, but at least it'll still go to a debate. Politicians will stand up and try and defend the stupidity of not being part of a customs union, and it'll give the government a bit of impetus to say, okay, well, we will make a customs union with the EU because that will make trade easier and it will increase our economy, where we are in our economy, which I feel is really important. So I'm glad that we've had a bit of good news, because that makes a bloody change. But also, we've had some good news in other cases with the way things are going. Inflation hasn't gone up, so that was good news this morning. But generally speaking, it's like I don't really want to obsess over what's happening in America and what's happening in the Middle East so much as I want to look at what's happening in the UK and what positive changes are happening, because positive changes are happening. They may move at fucking glacial speed and not be as quick and as effective as we want them to be, but things are, after 14 years of Tory mismanagement and misrule, I feel like they're moving slowly, too slowly, in the right direction. I think Labour could do a much better job, and oh my God, I saw a video yesterday. I couldn't quite believe what I was seeing. It was a video on the Labour Party TikTok, right? And it was a boring woman talking about the investment of steel in British railways, and it was just like the most boring video you could possibly imagine. And so, what the brain trust at Labour Comms had decided to do with this video, they decided to spice it up a little bit by doing that thing they do on TikTok, which I find really annoying, where they have something happening in the top of the screen, and in the bottom of the screen, they have someone playing Subway Surfers. Ladies and gentlemen, Labour comms, Labour comms, Labour comms, Labour comms. Let's have a look at the papers. We've got the Mirror here. Speak up for justice. Grooming victims plea. A victim of grooming gangs has urged others to come forward in a bid to smash the sick culture of abuse, destroying young girls' lives. Yeah, absolutely. This is something that needs to be done. So we were talking about. Oh, thank you. You're the best. One of the things that they've discussed, obviously, is like how disgusting it is that victims of grooming gangs, victims of gangs of men sexually assaulting children, content warning for this. The fact that these young people can be done for child prostitution. So child prostitution against the law. Against the law. What? I mean, there's victim blaming. And then there's a whole nother level where you actually bring criminal charges against the victims of a horrific crime. It's like being put in jail for being burgled. I mean, just like, what? How is that? Someone tries to murder you, so you're put in jail. And you're like, hang on, why am I in jail? Well, you almost got murdered, so, can't have that. It's just, it's a painful situation. Ivan says, I have my own priorities, which I need to go to parliamentary debate and legislation, autism, ADHD, mental health. That's where I would start. Ivan, yeah, and find an MP. Adopt an MP who is very strong on mental health, who's voted consistently. Go and have a look on theyworkforyou.com. Find someone who's voted consistently to improve mental health services, someone who's spoken about mental health in Parliament, and get in touch with them and support them, because they are your best way in for stuff like that, because I don't think that people need convincing that we need to do more mental health. I think that there's a tacit acceptance on both sides of the house in the Commons that is something that needs to be addressed and looked at. And again, like, when I say Labour are moving too slow, I'm not saying move fast. Oh, I just disconnected. Well, that's sad. Hey, I'm back. Hi. No, I was just saying to Ivan, like, find an MP and adopt them. Just make that your go-to MP to talk to about mental health. And I know you're not supposed to talk to MPs who aren't in your constituency about stuff, but just see if you can strike up a friendship with them. Stella Creasy's not my MP yet. I might just have a chat with her about this upcoming abortion regulation. Clive Lewis is not my MP. Johnny Reynolds is not my MP. So, you can get in touch with these MPs to have a chat about this stuff, especially if they're a strong advocate for it, even if they're not your personal MP. Which is another reason why I like the idea of having party lists and having a group of MPs that represent a city or an area, and you can go to one of your three MPs. So if you've got a Lib Dem, a Tory, and a Labour MP representing your area, you can go to one of the three of them, to the one that you think you'll get the best response from. I think that system would work so much better, because we'll feel a bit more represented. But we're not going to get into voter reform this morning. It's too big a secret. The secrets of how to win those simmering feuds with your neighbours. Do you know what? The Daily Mail knows its readership, doesn't it? Like a simmering feud. Who has simmering feuds with their neighbours? Like, I mean, at least one of those neighbours is going to be a fucking refuck voter, aren't they? Otherwise, why would you have a feud with them? You'd have a barbecue. US poised to join Iran war. I hope this is hyperbole. I hope it's not going to happen. I hope they're not that stupid. But then they've got bloody the president of the United States of stupid in charge at the moment, which is POTUS with 2 S's. Alice Durham, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. This community is brilliant to see the support you give out to people in chat. Bravo. Yeah, thank you to everyone in the chat. And thank you to Alice Durham in particular there for the £5 super chat. Really helpful. That refuck neighbour is the idiot reading the Daily Hile. Yeah. So the Daily Hile is giving advice to your refuck neighbour on how to take you to court. Great. And then the hateful mother who turned the queen of clean into queen of mean. This is this woman who's died. Front page of the Times here. We've got some girls in bikinis, obviously, because it's going to be hot or something. My sleep divorce isn't working. Okay, don't even know what that is. Channel migrant crisis deepens as French hand out life jackets. Well, what do you expect them to do? These people are drowning. Of course, they're going to hand out life jackets. Trump, we won't kill Ayatollah for now. An M dash. Okay. President calls for Iran's unconditional surrender to who? How does that work? What? Unconditional surrender? Who's going to go in? Are you going to take over into Iran? Is going to be a group of diplomats from Tel Aviv? Are they going to go and take? Who's going to take over? Who are they surrendering to, Donny? How does this work? And then we got a picture of the fella and the woman, the grandparents who live at number 42, because they were at Ascot yesterday for the 200th anniversary of the royal procession. Cool. Okay, good to know that they've gone out for a jolly in their car. No more prosecutions for late abortions. As we discussed. The I newspaper here. I exercised like a boomer and felt fitter and happier. Okay, whatever. MPs vote to decriminalise abortion after 164 years. Decriminalise abortion for women, not for the doctors who prescribe the pills or supply the pills. We've got Trump threatens supreme leader of Iran, but won't kill him for now. We've mentioned that already. And the ridiculousness of this unconditional surrender. I don't really know how that works. Maybe you can explain it to me. Raducanu stalker tried to buy Wimbledon tickets. The guy should be in jail. He should just be in jail for the rest of Raducanu's tennis career. Searching for love as a shorter man. Oh my God. It makes no difference. Like, whatever. Trump demands unconditional surrender by Iran as tensions rise. More nonsense. Minister to criticise Tory waste over HS2. So this is going to be in Parliament today. Heidi Alexander is going to tell MPs just how insanely wasteful the Tories were with HS2, a project that was supposed to cost 20 odd billion pounds and be finished in 2026. Look at my imaginary watch there. 2026 is next year. And they're nowhere near finished. Even the first part of it. Cost overruns have just gone absolutely through the roof. It just goes to show that the Tories are really, really shit at everything. They are shit at running a country efficiently. They're just bad at it. They are incompetent. Don't be fooled by their posh southern accents just because they sound like they know what they are doing. Does not mean for one tiny microscopic second that they actually know what they are doing, because they absolutely fucking don't. Anyway, so back onto the papers. Devastating charity boss found fatally stabbed after gas explosion. This is horrific. This is absolutely horrific. Murder of this woman who was stabbed to death, and then the house she was in, or obviously she was in, blew up after a fucking gas leak. I mean, Jesus. And abortion no longer a criminal matter, but it kind of is. If you're the doctor, oh my God, they're not really getting this, are they? Alison Peterson there saying, lock up grooming gang apologists. I don't know how that works, but you're an apologist for racists, and and bigots and misogynists. So I don't know what if you start locking people up for having an opinion. Well, I'm afraid the Daily Telegraph lunatics who write for this rag will probably be first in line for the old jumpsuit in the jail cell. The best swimwear for every shape. Okay. And then we've got Trump poised to join war on Iran. President calls for unconditional surrender and ultimatum over nuclear enrichment. And Stalin delays Starman. Starman. It's a bit like Stalin and Starmer put together. It's a new name for him. You can use that if you want, if you're weird. Starmer delays HS2 after £13.7 billion of failure. Don't forget, it cost us $39 billion to leave the EU. That was money well spent, wasn't it? We spent $39 billion to destroy our own economy. One of the grooming gangs. Okay, Royal Racing Special got a picture of the Royals there. Very low quality picture, by the way. Tory leader demands inquiry that actually gets to the bottom of this. Grooming gangs, one of the biggest scandals ever. From the Express. There's Kemi Badenoch. And just to remind you, Kemi Badenoch, that woman there above my finger, I'm pointing to her. That's Kemi Badenoch. She's the leader of the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party were in charge for 14 years, during which they had an inquiry into grooming gangs, which they put in a drawer, didn't do any of the recommendations of, and they allowed people to get away with it. 14 years. She did nothing. Her government did nothing. The party that she was in, the government she was in, did nothing. Absolutely zero. They commissioned an inquiry, which cost lots of money to the taxpayer and didn't lead anywhere. Didn't do anything. They didn't take on any of the recommendations at all. And when I say something is a bit rich, I mean, seriously, how that is some brass neck on that lady. That is a brass neck lady. You know the women in Thailand who put the rings around their neck? Imagine that, but it's all brass. That is some brass neck. My God. My God. You've got some gall coming in here saying that shit when you motherfuckers were in charge for 14 fucking years. And you could have done something about it. Instead of leaving the victims to flail. And be done for child prostitution. Because that's against the law, apparently. A ridiculous system. We've got the guy from Pimlinson Plumbers there, and Donnie Darko over there. Do you think I'm angry? I don't want to talk about it. Very good. And then we've got Financial Times here. Why can't the world turn its back on coal? Because the coal manufacturers won't allow it. How US political murders became easier? Well, because everyone's got a gun. Trump calls for Iran's surrender and leaves way open to US role in the conflict. President's patience wearing thin, Israeli officials optimistic, and two sides exchange missile strikes. And there's a woman looking incredibly bored in the middle there. Israelis taking to a bomb shelter. She's looking bored. There's a guy checking his phone here, but this woman, she's just bored shitless. She needs a phone. Actually, she's holding a phone. Check something. Maybe she can't get signal because it's in the basement. They're all checking their phones, aren't they? But yeah, President's patience is wearing thin, like he ever had any patience. Reeves signals NATO defense spending target will be pushed to after election. So Rachel Reeves has signaled that defense spending will not rise beyond 2.6% of GDP until next parliament, despite intense pressure from the US for NATO countries to boost their militaries for some reason. Metro here, we've got the heat wave warning for inflaming June. Sweltering Britons have been warned for a 5-day heat wave starting today. And even our hottest June day ever is possible. A scorching 33 degrees C is forecast for Sunday, but the Met Office said it could even beat the 35 degrees recorded in Southampton in June 1976 during a record-breaking summer. Yep, things getting hotter because of global warming. Putting on the style for glass dough, I'm Abby to help. Well, this is my glass dough setup. Lots of pockets. This has got like the most amazing pockets. I mean, you can't really tell, but like you can fit like a bottle of wine. You can put like a bottle of wine in each of these pockets. You can put it into you know that bit in bottom loved Bottom. Greatest show on television. There's a bit where Eddie, they're on top of like a Ferris wheel, and they're trapped on top of the Ferris wheel, and Eddie just pulls a pint out of his pocket, and it's my favorite. It's my favorite thing ever. Just like it pulls like his entire pint out of his pocket and starts drinking it. I'm like, that is absolutely awesome. So having a top that has lots of pockets in, I feel is something that I should make the most of. Because I've tried doing the politics stuff, turning up in a suit or whatever. No one recognises who the fuck you are. I think it's more interesting to dress up like this. The people are like, why are you dressed like that? Why are you dressed like a mad bastard when you're talking about politics? Why have you got a hat on indoors? Why are you here at this conference just like you're going exploring in the jungle? I'm like, because this is what I feel comfortable in. Makes me stand out. Who cares? I got loads of pockets to put all my fucking beer in. It's all good. Plus, if anyone wants to ask me where I got this gilet, where I got this waistcoat, I can say, well, got it in Herat. Where's Herat, they ask. I say, well, it was in Afghanistan. You fought in Afghanistan? No, just turned up for a holiday. Just turned up to visit with my backpack and my Scouse charm and my visa numbered 0085, which is heartwarming to know there's at least 84 madder people than me. So there you go. So this is my Glasto. This is my Glasto outfit. I'm also wearing a t-shirt that says "Not all who wonder are lost," which is a quote from Lord of the Rings. Cause I'm a massive geek. Yeah, take that, people who aren't geeks. They're called poacher pockets for the obvious reason, Graham. They're fucking great. I love that. Not having pockets would freak me out. Like having to wear a dress that has no pockets. That would be like the worst. For me, I mean, I'm happy to wear a dress, but it would need to have pockets. It would definitely need to have pockets. Problem is, I'm going to have to close all the windows, so I'm probably going to need an air purifier as well. If you smoke, having the windows open is a good idea. Yes, it is. But that allows all the pollen in. Swing them to the left, swing them to the right. You can swing them in the pants all day and night, says Graham Speedos. Thanks for that. Can you tie him in or not? Can you tie him in about? It's fun to be a bit mad, says Chip. It absolutely is. Nice gentle breeze too. Women's clothing never has enough pockets. Yeah, I know. We should do something about that. I need a t-shirt saying "Not all boomers." Not all boomers. Not all boomers. Was that on anyone's bingo card? Not all boomers. Yeah, indeed. Tories, they work in fucking slimy, dodgy ways. God, it's a bit vague. I don't know. The maddest of people are ones who think it's their normal. Yeah. I have too many pockets. You can never have too many pockets, one angry pagan. Dresses with pockets are increasingly common. I have 8 and 6 have pockets, says Grimfang. They're a good call. Dresses with pockets. Anyway, so I'm going to head off now into the wild blue yonder. I'm going to head off to the west. The Western lands, Valinor, under a swift sunrise. But I will be back at 12 o'clock today because we have PMQs. Now, I'm just going to check because I'm not sure, but I think it might be deputy PMQs today. I don't know. It might be Prime Minister's questions, BBC. This is really annoying. I've found no way of just quickly looking at the Parliament schedule. Let's have a look. Prime Minister's questions. No, it is Keir Starmer. He's back because he was in Canada, wasn't he? Yesterday, he was at the G7, so he's obviously back. So yeah, it is going to be the Prime Minister answering questions Wednesday, the 18th of June. That's right. So that's going to be at 12 o'clock today. Please join us for that. We're going to have a watch party. I'm going to interrupt now and again. I'll try and stop the feed because I realise when I talk over what people are saying, it's kind of annoying. So I'll stop the feed, say what I need to say, be outraged about what I need to be outraged with, drop a few choice insults into the chat, into the firmament, into the void. But yeah, I'll be back for that, and then at 6 o'clock tonight, I'll be joined by Rachel Harris, and we are going to be talking. This is exciting. We're going to be talking about parody films. Are they any good? We'll be naming and shaming the great parody films and the really, really shit parody films. So please join us for that, and that'll be at 6 o'clock tonight. Down the rabbit hole, anything but politics. We're not going to be talking about politics. We're just going to be talking about movies and music and fine dining, whatever the fuck we want to talk about. So please join us for that. And so until then, I'll say thank you very much for watching. Thanks for everyone who joined in the chat. Thanks for everyone who bought other people memberships. It's very kind of you, Alistair and Andrew. And until next time, I will say, thanks for the super chat as well. Give us a like on the way out. Please don't forget. And until next time, hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.